The ESPN 2007 Tobacco Road Kickoff Tour began last night in Durham as fifth-ranked Duke extended the nation's longest home non-conference winning streak to 51 games with a win over Temple. Josh McRoberts had a career-high 21. Tonight, we shift focus 8 miles down the road to Chapel Hill, home of second-ranked North Carolina. And like Duke last night, the Tar Heels with their final tune-up before conference play. Hosting Penn at the Dean Dome, Carolina 12-1 and the only loss on the year against Gonzaga. The Quakers come into this game with a record of 6-5. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Pasch alongside Len Elmore. Doris Burke with us as well. Well, Len, North Carolina's won 9 in a row, the last 6, by an average of 33 points. What is Roy Williams looking for tonight?
Well, winning basketball is habitual and repetitive, and Roy Williams told us he wants his team to continue the defensive effort. The last 5 games, they've held teams on average of 52 points, 34% field goal shooting. He wants his guys to play with poise and with effort.
Taking a look at our Star Watch, Wayne Ellington, one of 3 freshman starters for North Carolina.
Well, Ibrahim Jabber for Penn, unanimous All-Ivy as well as Player of the Year. Quick and cunning on defense. And Wayne Ellington, the freshman, consistent deep threat, top 5 in the ACC three-point shooting. Makes it easier to get it inside to the big fellas.
Let's take a look at the rest of the starting lineups. First for Penn. You talked about Jabber. Actually, the leading scorer this year is Mark Zoller, 21 points per game. He's joined by Danley and Tommy McMahon. Jabber and Brian Grandieri in the backcourt. Grandieri averaging 13 points per contest. We mentioned 3 freshmen for North Carolina, and of course sophomore Tyler Hansbrough, ACC preseason player of the year. Brandon Wright, Rayshawn Terry also in the front court, and in the backcourt Wayne Ellington and Ty Lawson, who leads the ACC in assist to turnover ratio. Roy Williams got his 500th overall win as a head coach last month, fastest ever to do it, took him 19 seasons. And Glenn Miller in his first year as the head coach at Penn, replacing Fran Dunphy, who we saw last night, now coaching Temple. Miller spent the last 7 years coaching Brown, and he's a former Jim Calhoun assistant. Spent 7 years at Connecticut. And the students not here for this game tonight, or at least most of them aren't here, but the fans and the players into it nonetheless as they get ready for their final tune-up before ACC play against Florida State on Sunday. Our officials for tonight here in Chapel Hill, and it'll be Penn basketball. E.B. Jabber to start for Penn.
Well, in talking to Glenn Miller today at their shoot-around, the bottom line is Penn, believe it or not, doesn't necessarily want to hold the ball. Certainly they want to be able to maximize their possessions in the half court, but they'd like to run a little bit as well. It's a team that averages 78 points a game.
Here's Tommy McMahon from outside. A great start for Penn as McMahon drops in a 3.
The idea was to move the ball and force Carolina to change on defense, to force guys to move defensively. And of course we know Carolina, as they face the Penn man-to-man, they just want to be able to push the ball, get it inside when they can, but more importantly, rebound and run.
And Palmer is the call on Ty Lawson. That throughout the early part of the college basketball season has been a major point of emphasis. Lawson does not turn it over a whole lot. Coming in tonight over an 8-game stretch, 58 assists and only 11 turnovers.
But he may be bothered a little bit. As you see the nice backdoor cut right there. Penn starting to work their offense. An excellent pass. But if you look at Lawson's right wrist, he took a hard fall on New Year's Eve in a game against Dayton. Sprained that wrist, bruised his hip. And he's a righty, so that wrist may bother him as he handles the ball.
He's actually been wearing a splint during the day. Terry missing. And it's Penn basketball with a 5-0 lead. Tommy McMahon has all 5 for the Quakers. He only averages 6 per game on the year. And last touch by Penn.
Well, Carolina, at least this year's team, notoriously slow starters. There's the wrist bandage on Ty Lawson. And again, if you're patting that rock, a lot of times you want flexibility in that wrist. It makes it a lot easier for you to change direction. And his flexibility is certainly limited by that wrap.
That is quite a wrap on his right wrist. Usually don't see him that size. His hand throw gets fouled. And he'll go to the line for 2. First foul in the game. Fouls on Danley.
Take a look at Ty Lawson, and again, he's listed at 5'11", and he's just about that, but he's thick, and he's strong, and he's fast, and when you generate that kind of thickness into speed and velocity, You know, he gets where he wants to go anytime he wants to go.
Hansbrough gets both free throws, 72% foul shooter. He's 4th in the ACC in scoring, 5th in rebounding coming into tonight. First points in the game for Carolina. North Carolina will play Florida State here on Sunday, as mentioned, and Virginia next week. And then a week from Saturday at Virginia Tech on ABC, 3:30 Eastern tip. Almost a steal by Wright, and then it is a steal by Ellington, but he couldn't handle it. It'll stay Penn basketball, 11 on the shot clock.
Well, Carolina doing a nice job right now, recognizing what Penn's trying to do. They want to continue to reverse the ball, make the Carolina defense shift. But once the ball goes to one side, look for the Carolina players on the weak side to really deny that reversal.
You talked a little bit about Carolina's defense. Their last 5 opponents have shot 37% from the field or less against the Tar Heels. Shot clock is at 4.
And I don't think Penn's aware of it.
And an offensive foul is called. That's the second team foul and the second personal on Danley.
Well, the call was Danley using his forearm to kind of clear as he tried to lock the defender. And I've always taught, and I've been taught, you don't use your arms to lock defenders. You use your hips and possibly your shoulder. If the official can see your hands, he's not going to make that call.
So Danley to the bench. Brennan Votel comes into the game. Glenn Miller told us today he's not going to be afraid to go deep into his bench and play a lot of guys tonight against this deep Carolina team. Here's Ellington. Entry pass to Terry. Strong move to the goal for Rayshon Terry.
Well, that's just a nice job of recognizing the mismatch. Rayshon Terry at 6'8", being guarded by E.B. Jabber, who's only 6'2", down on the low block.
Terry, 9 points per game, 14 per game last year. Great back door. Ibrahim Jabber averaging 16 points per game, gets his first basket, 7-4 Penn. Here's Lawson with Jabber guarding him. Entry to Hansbrough. The double team comes, and the third Pennsylvania foul.
And here again, the recognition of the mismatch on Carolina's last possession. Just a nice seal right there, not allowing Jabber to get around the side, and the help comes too late. And a nice little drop step by Terry to the basket.
Terry again to the goal, off the window. That's 4 straight points for Rayshon Terry, the only scholarship senior on this North Carolina roster.
Rayshon Terry averaging 9 points a game, about 5 points below his average from last year. And, you know, Roy Williams told us he's a senior. Maybe he's trying a little bit too hard, but he's gotten really active out here on offense.
Votel able to score over Hansbrough, 9-6 Penn. Terry on the baseline, it was cut off, and he threw it away.
Well, again, you talk about using Carolina's aggressiveness against them. Nice backdoor cut. Jabber just steps up. Lawson never sees his man. You got to be able to see man ball. And there was so much distance between Lawson and his man that backdoor cut was going to work because Lawson had already committed.
Danny Green and Deion Thompson come into the game. Green a sophomore, Thompson a freshman. A lot of people think Thompson can start for just about anybody in college basketball except North Carolina because of all the other stars they have here. Another basket inside for Penn, this time by Mark Zoller. Leading score for the Quakers on the year. It's 11-6 Penn. Ellington's 3 is off the mark. He's an excellent 3-point shooter. Back down the floor quickly is Votel. And nice move on the baseline by Jabber. It's a 7-point Penn lead.
Votel of credit for that one. He had an opportunity to try to take it to the basket, but that's not his game. And he waited for his offensive star, E.B. Jabber. And Penn right now showing some moxie out here.
Not afraid to take it to the basket. When the Penn players walked onto the floor about 10 minutes ago, they were all gazing up into the rafters at the national championship banners. They don't seem to be fazed, though, yet by the folks here in Chapel Hill and the hundreds of banners we have in the rafters. It's going to be Penn basketball when we come back. A 7-point lead for the Quakers. When we come back, Doris Burke will talk about one of the most dynamic duos of college basketball's front court players.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by GMC. Engineered to the highest standard, professional grade.
Great start for Penn, leading North Carolina 13-6. Time now to introduce to you the third member of our broadcast crew, Doris Burke.
State, for the first time in their respective careers, Brandon Wright and Tyler Hansbrough are playing alongside another dominant post player. For Brandon Wright, he says, listen, it's been a luxury for me. All of the defensive attention afforded to Tyler Hansbrough has resulted in excellent shots. For Hansbrough, on the other hand, he said, listen, it's been an adjustment for me. A season ago, he didn't have the luxury of a wealth of talent, so he's trying to figure out how best to make use of the talent around him. Now, Roy Williams will tell you that 52% shooting and plus 12 rebound margin is a direct result, Lenny, of them opponents trying to take away Tyler Hansbrough. That Gonzaga game tape is a hot topic amongst opponents of Carolina.
And I bet it certainly is, as people are continually trying to take Tyler Hansbrough out of the game. To his credit, he's developing another dimension to his game by stepping outside and looking to shoot the jumper, create more room. You know, I know exactly how Hansbrough feels and how Wright feels. You know, when I came up back in the day, I played alongside Tom McMillan. And, you know, we were two guys who were dominant in high school, and we had to learn to play together. And, you know, I think we solved it pretty well.
On the other end, Tommy McMahon with a travel, then a basket by Deion Thompson, his first points. Thompson averaging 4.5 points per game, a freshman from Torrance, California.
Well, you can tell in that huddle, Roy Williams absolutely had to talk about getting the ball inside again. Not looking for the perimeter opportunity, but forced Penn to have to cover inside and then play inside out.
Foul on Danny Green. That's his first personal and the first North Carolina team foul.
And we mentioned it earlier. The thing I like about Penn is they're not looking to take the air out of the ball. They want to play their game. Their game is about motion, about execution. We saw it just there, and there's a steal by Jabber.
Jabber averages over 3 steals a game. Fourth shot there, only the second miss, though, by Pennsylvania.
And Jabber gets those steals many times by lurking around on the inbounds, as Glenn Miller told us today.
Another foul on Penn. That's the 4th team foul. And the second personal on Votel. And 5 new players for North Carolina, including Bobby Fraser, who has not been playing lately due to a foot injury. Tomorrow night we have college basketball action on both ESPN and ESPN2, starting at 7. Number 10, Pitt and Syracuse on ESPN. Michigan State, Iowa, 9 Eastern on ESPN2. We mentioned the fact that Fraser is into the game. He's only played in 7 games this year, started every game a year ago for North Carolina. Battling a right foot injury. There's some talk about him redshirting, but that's not going to happen. Rebound by Copeland, had it blocked, and it will stay North Carolina basketball.
Well, Bobby Fraser, you know, that foot injury was kind of a mystery to a lot of people, including the doctors. It obviously has developed to the point now where he can come out here and play, but for a time they were thinking about him applying for a medical hardship. You know, the medical redshirt rule, and 7 games was the limit upon which he could have applied. And so now he's in his 8th game. They expect him to be able to play the rest of the season.
Here's Miller finding Ginyard on the drive. Had it blocked. Kevin Iggy with the block for Penn. Here come the Quakers leading by 7. Take a look at the shot clock, lower left-hand corner of your screen. Let's see how much time the Quakers take off the clock before they get a shot.
Well, they're going to look for a good shot. They're not trying to take the air out of the ball, but they are trying to get a good look.
And another Penn turnover. Bring Doris Burke in for more on the shot clock and what Penn is trying to do offensively.
Well, clearly, Glenn Miller would not like to see that shot clock go under 10. He said, we'd love to work it for about 15 to 20 seconds and get Carolina moving defensively. He does not want his guys to feel the pressure of having to make shots inside of 10. So ideally, they'd like to use that first 2/3 of the shot clock to get a good look. Early on, it was successful, not so last possession, guys.
Nope, foul on Lewis, his first and the 5th. On Penn, only 1 team foul on Carolina.
Well, the bottom line, as Doris mentioned, you don't want to get to the point where you need somebody to break the defense down, because really the only one capable of doing that is E.B. Jabber, and even he is not comfortable being able to take you off the bounce. You need it when the shot clock runs down. You need a point guard that's capable of creating for himself and others, and Penn doesn't really have that. But they have the lead, so it doesn't matter right now.
Jabber, we mentioned that he averages 3.5 steals per game, does average 5.5 assists per game, but a scorer many times first before he's a passer. And there is his propensity to steal the basketball, doing it again. And down the court, Iggy missing the layup. And then traveling is the call on Mike Copeland, who's not played a lot this year, but is getting an opportunity tonight.
And the reason for the travel call is once you have possession of the ball, you come down, you hit the ground, it's automatic. And we talked about at the Open that Jabber, very sly, very cunning. You know, he'll lull you into a false sense of security and those long arms and quick reactions.
And how about the three by Iggy? It's a 10-point Penn lead. First points of the game for Kevin Iggy. He's 7 of 10 on the year from 3.
You saw Carolina rush the ball up. That's what they want to continually do. But they have to hit some shots.
Nice screen by Ginyard. Frazier is free and hits the triple. And that gets the crowd involved. And almost a turnover by Penn. Again, the shot clock, lower left-hand corner of your screen. Let's see if they can take a shot in between 10 to 15 seconds on the timer. They don't even get one off. Another turnover, the 5th in the first 7.5 minutes by Penn.
Well, this point in time, Penn would be better served to continue to spread the floor and try to move the ball, use the dribble when the recipient is overplayed, but also use the dribble to force Carolina into overplaying and look for the back door. We haven't seen the back door cut in a while. But the pressure is starting to bother Penn a little bit.
Frazier, another deep shot. That's a 2. His foot was on the line, but 5 in a row for Bobby Frazier.
And it's amazing what adrenaline can do for you. You haven't played. This is probably the 6th. You haven't played in 6 games, and here you are in the opportunity to come back out here and show what you can do. Bobby Frazier's got the feeling.
He scored the last 5 points, and North Carolina is down, believe it or not, but now it's only a 5-point deficit. 2007, Saturday night down at LSU. Here it's Penn leading number 2, North Carolina by 5. Should be a great challenge on Saturday for UConn. You watched them in their only loss of the year against Marquette. What are your thoughts on the Huskies?
Well, again, this is a very young team. They've got all the pieces. A.J. Price, Doug Wiggins. They've got a Workman and Jeff Adrian down low, and a terrific shot blocker, young shot blocker in Hasheem Thabeet. And you talk about scoring right here. Pennsylvania running their stuff.
Correction, I said
efficiency. Right, I know you said that, but I was going to say it's West Virginia. But in the end, that's a team that's going to be reckoned with. They're young. They're going to have trouble on the road until they develop poise.
Ginyard with a nice pass. Stevenson with the follow. Well, North Carolina making a bit of a run with its second group, including Mike Copeland, who doesn't play a whole lot. Is that Roy Williams trying to send a message to his starters?
Oh, absolutely. But he's sending it in a non-verbal fashion. He didn't have to say anything to his guys. He put this second unit out, and they started playing defense with intensity, started playing it with a passion, started helping each other, started moving the ball on the offensive end, and that was all you need to send the message. Now he gets his starters back in the game and said, have you guys had enough? Have you seen enough?
And the Carolina subs outscored Penn 7-3 to get the Tar Heels back within 3.
You know, sometimes, you know, you can jumpstart your car with just a little bit of a spark. And that's what those guys on the bench gave this team, a bit of a spark. Let's see what the starters can do right now, if they can pick up on the momentum.
And the shot clock down to about 5 seconds. And again, they can't get off a shot. That's the 7th turnover. Doris talked about Penn not wanting to take a shot inside of 10 seconds. There were 5 on the timer, and they were scrambling. North Carolina scored 7 straight points, was down by 10.
Again, the idea for Carolina right now to continue to whittle away at this lead is to try to play a little inside out.
That's Rayshawn Terry, a 2 for Terry. He's got 6 in the game.
And that was what they were attempting, but Penn doing a nice job of covering up, particularly on Tyler Hansbrough. So Rayshawn Terry took matters in his own hands.
9 straight points for North Carolina. What does Penn have to do to cool off the Tar Heels, or can they?
I think they've got to get better spacing right now and go back to their original plan. recognizing Carolina's looking to overplay, looking to deny, and just use that aggressiveness against them with the back doors and the penetrating kicks.
North Carolina can intimidate you and often does things during pregame to do just that.
Well, again, this is one of those pregame rituals, little defensive drill, move your feet, dive on the floor. And I tell you what, it pays dividends because right there, terrific job by Copeland to get on the floor, gain possession.
Steal by Lawson, and North Carolina takes the lead. And don't think when Carolina was doing it during the pregame that the Penn players weren't taking notice.
Hey, yeah, you could see them looking out of the corner of their eye. They didn't want to be too obvious and stare with their mouths open. But this is a young team, again, that has to understand how good they are in Carolina. And then you got a veteran team in Penn that should have some poise.
Jabber went for the steal. Already got 2 in this game, but commits a foul there. That's his first and the 6th on Penn. 12 points for North Carolina off of 5 Penn turnovers in the game. Let's bring in Doris for more on North Carolina's defense.
Well, guys, that's no coincidence. After their Kentucky game for 3 straight days, Carolina did not work on the offensive end of the floor in practice at all. Roy Williams was displeased. In fact, he and his staff were questioning whether or not they could play defense to a level that would make them successful in the ACC and nationally. At that point, guys, people started to grasp collectively and individually how important that was on the defensive end and how important it was to their hopes of not only contending in the ACC, but for a national championship. And over the last 5 games, they have been stellar defensively.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a trite saying, but it's certainly true that defense wins championships. But defense has to be the basis of your system. And when you're a team like Carolina, when you run so often, you create more possessions for both yourself and, unfortunately, for your opponent. You've got to be able to stop your opponent and stop them successively. And if you can't play solid defense, you know, you're just going to be trading baskets. And it's going to come down to a night when you're not shooting well and your opponent's going to become victorious. Carolina focuses on trying to stop you and then push it down your throat.
Penn's last basket came with 12 minutes and 56 seconds on the clock. North Carolina scored the last 12 points and another Penn giveaway. That's 9 first-half turnovers. They had 19 first-half turnovers against Villanova and still were in the game. In fact, led the Wildcats late in that contest before bowing by 10.
Well, in this situation, that last turnover by Zawa, you have to recognize against Carolina, you got to be strong with the ball because they're going to be reaching, they're going to look to deflect. And when you lose that kind of focus, that's what opens the door to run.
Lawson thought about the 3. Not there for Ellington. Entry pass to Hansbrough's broken up, but into the hands of Terry.
Well, Hansbrough just getting manhandled under there. Justin Riley just holding his own, not allowing Hansbrough to back him down.
Lawson, tough shot on the baseline. And a fortuitous hop into the hands of Ellington. And now a foul inside on McMahon. That's the 18th foul, and Hansbrough will go to the bench for a 1-and-1 situation.
Well, we mentioned it before about adrenaline. Fraser hadn't played in 6 games, comes right off the bench. And, you know, when you haven't played and you sit and you watch, you're just so antsy to get out there and to be able to do something to contribute to your team. And Fraser, obviously, his minutes are going to be limited because they don't want to throw him right out there and wear him out. But nevertheless, he made his presence felt.
Had 5 straight points to start that run, which right now is at 12 in a row. And perhaps counting.
72%, right?
Hansbrough knocks down the front end of the 1-and-1. All of his points tonight have come at the line. He actually does not have an official field goal attempt in the game yet. Justin Riley, a freshman from Dallas, Texas, doing a pretty good job on Hansbrough, frustrating him. On the bench right now, as Penn continues to bring players in and out. They've already played.
There's the back door again. That's what you got to get back to. Spread the floor, use the dribble when the player is being denied, and let him take it to the back door.
That ends a 14-0 run. Hansbrough on the other end hits the jump shot. That's a 2. Extended his game out around the 3-point line this year. Roy Williams told us before the game tonight that he's better in every way. He's quicker, he's stronger, he's a better shooter, better scorer, better rebounder as well in his sophomore season. Foul was on Ty Lawson. That's only the 3rd team foul on North Carolina and the 1st on Lawson.
Penn needs to continue to look for the backdoor opportunities, ultimately force Carolina to play him honestly.
Zoller with a drive on right. Rebounded by Terry. Ahead to Hansbrough.
That's what we mean when Carolina wants to run it down your throat. There's probably not a better team in transition in college basketball than North Carolina.
Check out the run over the last 3.5. 18-2 by the Tar Heels. Getting caught in the air was McMahon, and another Penn turnover. Right down the floor.
Boy, look at Terry get up.
What an athlete. Lawson. Too strong with a three. Hansbrough. Carolina out hustling Penn right now. Terry short with a triple try. And now a foul is called on Hansbrough, his first and the fourth on the Tar Heels. But Carolina getting it going now on both ends of the floor, especially offensively of late. Tyler Hansbrough with 8 points in the game for North Carolina, which leads by 6. Welcome back to Chapel Hill. On the strength of 64% shooting, Penn is hanging around. At one point had a 10-point lead, but North Carolina is now up 6 with 7:15 remaining in the opening half. 8 points for Tyler Hansbrough, and the defense for North Carolina has been very good, forcing 10 turnovers. And they almost forced another one, but a foul is called on Carolina. That is team foul number 5. Time now for a SportsCenter 30 at 30 update. Here's Carl Ravitch.
Thank you very much. Nick Saban got on the plane. He has already landed in Tuscaloosa, and the chance will roll tide. He signs an 8-year deal worth upwards of $30 million. And speaking of coaches from Miami, Pat Riley said he is sick and tired of the pain and medication. He's taking an indefinite leave of absence for hip and knee problems. All those stories coming up on SportsCenter at midnight Eastern. ESPN News is always on. Dave?
All right, Carl, not a good news for pro sports fans in Miami, losing one head coach permanently, leaving for Alabama, and who knows how long Pat Riley will be out. Jabber scoring for Penn to get the Quakers within 4.
Jabber scored on another backdoor situation. Penn doing a better job now of recognizing when the Carolina defenders commit and then taking them backdoor to the open spots.
Ellington off the dribble, knocks down a 3. Over his last 10 games, he's shooting almost 56% from 3.
And that's the kind of guy that can stretch a defense, make it easier to get the ball inside. You talk about inside out. Sometimes you got to go outside in. And Wayne Ellington is one of those guys who can do that.
Largest lead of the game for North Carolina, 7 points right now over Penn. 6 minutes to go in the opening half. Shot clock inside of 10 seconds. This is not what Penn wants. Timer at 4.
Well, see, right there, nobody able to break them down.
Danley for 3, and that's a shot clock violation.
Well, we talked about what Penn needs to do against the Carolina pressure. Take a look right here. Again, watch the defender step up right here. He commits, the dribble is towards, and he's going back door, and that's what you need to do. Look at the amount of room out there. And I think that's the play Penn needs to go back to. Doris?
Exactly, Len. That's exactly what Glenn Miller told his guys. He said, how can we have such effectiveness with that backdoor cut early, and then we go stagnant, stop making sharp cuts and hitting that backdoor. He said, let's stick with the game plan, spread them out, and use that backdoor cut. So I think we'll see more of it here, Lenny.
Well, the idea is, again, for them to keep the floor spread and to continue to bring their guys up with the motion and then dribble towards the guy being denied. I mean, it's a pretty simple equation. And ultimately, you get them off you because right now, Carolina just sticking to the blue shirts as tight as they can.
Here's Zoller, leading scorer on the season, and only 4 points in the game for Penn. Zoller, one of the top scorers in the Ivy League, 21 points per contest. Here's Zoller on the baseline. And again, the timer inside of 10 seconds. The block by Green. It'll stay Penn basketball. 2 seconds on the shot clock.
Well, Penn is not going to win a battle in the paint against Carolina. No question about it. And if you are, you got to go up strong.
30-second timeout by Penn. They'll try to drop a play. 2 seconds on the shot clock when we come back. Back in Chapel Hill, North Carolina leading Penn with under 5 minutes to go by 7. ESPN has a doubleheader coming up on Saturday. A rematch of a great game last year between Virginia Tech and number 5 Duke. The Blue Devils winning that game at a last-second shot when they were ranked number 1, by the way. And then at 2 Eastern, Ohio State taking on Illinois. 2 seconds on the shot clock, inbound to McMahon. And how about that? A timeout. And Glenn Miller takes the jacket off. He can't believe that they didn't even get a shot off after drawing up a play, knowing that there's only 2 seconds to shoot. That's 11 turnovers now by Penn.
And that is absolutely the thing that will drive a coach crazy. You give the instructions in the huddle, and you come out and guys act as though they didn't even hear you.
So McMahon goes to the bench, and Darren Smith comes into the game to replace him after that mental error. Ellington rising from the baseline, hit it, and the foul. Largest lead now for North Carolina is at 9.
Well, again, we talk about playing inside out, but Wayne Ellington playing a game of his own right now. Terrific three-point shooter. Came in 5th in the ACC in three-point field goals made, and Glenn Miller is not in the mood right now to have any of that stuff going on.
Carolina 9 for its last 14 after a slow start. Foul was on Grandieri, his first 19 foul.
And for those of you who think I'm dating myself, Glenn Miller, the great band leader during World War II, his mega hit was In the Mood. I'm sure your parents and grandparents could probably tell you all about it.
As for me, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Turnover by Penn.
I can't believe you don't stay up late at night and watch old black and white movies because you couldn't miss them.
They used to have movies in black and white. North Carolina over the last 8.5, 24-4, outscoring Penn.
Carolina exhibiting a lot of patience right now. Quentin Thomas in the game. Third point guard who also suffered some foot injuries, missed a lot of games.
And Wayne Ellington has the hot hand. He's got 9 in the game, had a season-high 19 in the win against Ohio State.
The reason why I bring up Thomas's name, but because he's 3rd on the depth chart as far as point guards, and with Lawson hurt and Fraser just coming back, you know, Carolina really shorthanded at the point position.
Foul was on Ellington, his first, 5th on Carolina Tar Heels, leading by 13. They were down 10, believe it or not, in the first half, but Wayne Ellington with the hot hand.
Hubert Davis on an unbeaten Clemson team. That's coming up on UPS at the half.
And it's amazing, Carl, those two can sit next to each other without exchanging blows after Hubert called Jay Duke Boy during the filming of that commercial. Or game day. I'm sure Jay will get over it. He's tough. Entry pass to Hansbrough. And it doesn't drop through either time. He got 2 cracks at it, and it just hung on the rim and then fell off the side. Pennsylvania led by 10 early in the game, but a 22-point swing, and now another turnover. That's 13 turnovers.
Well, Zoller's got the ball down low with his broad shoulders, low base. You know, he had an opportunity to really power up. A ball fake to straighten up the defender, and then you power up. You got an opportunity to get to the free throw line, if not complete a three-point play. But again, the intimidation factor, the length of Brandon Wright just made Zoller think otherwise.
Only 4 points for Zoller, 20 points for North Carolina off of those turnovers by Penn. Hansbrough hit one from out there earlier, but unable to knock down that shot.
And going back to Zoller down low on the blocks, I mean, that's a habit that you develop. And in the Ivy League, I'm sure Zoller is usually one of the bigger guys out there. He hasn't seen many guys with the length of a Brandon Wright.
Wright gets his hand in there and strips Zoller. In the shot clock, as you see, lower left-hand corner of your screen, got right about to 10. And then Penn gets a layup. Steve Danley driving to the basket.
Who said they don't have anyone who can create off the bounce?
Here's Wright. Oh,
nice.
What a quick move down the baseline of the dunk. Well, many people think he'll go to the NBA next year. That is a pro basketball move right there. How about the quickness? Didn't even put it on the floor until he got by the guy.
No, he got head and shoulders past him in a blink of an eye. And that was definitely a pro move right there.
Approaching the 2-minute mark here in the opening half. Randiri's three is too strong. And a 4-on-2 for the Tar Heels. Lawson with a skip to Miller. And now Hansbrough. How many times do you see him miss that shot? Rarely. He's got 10 now in the game and a 14-point Tar Heel lead.
Well, again, going back inside. Take a look at this move again by Brandon Wright. Just a quick sweep through. Just on the crossover. Once again, quick first step. Gets head and shoulders past his man. The thing that's important was the fact that Wright stayed low as he put the ball on the floor. Lower center of gravity quick. And that's Tyler Hansbrough's trademark move, a little right-hand jump hook where he used that left hand and just freezes the defender.
Glenn, how would you compare Wright and Hansbrough as a front-court duo to, say, Noah and Horford at Florida?
I think, they're pretty much equivalent. I think actually from a fundamental standpoint as far as low post play and play right outside on the perimeter, I think that Hansbrough and Wright might have an edge. Nevertheless, you talk about passion, you talk about hustle, you talk about intelligence. Noah and Horsford, they've been there. They understand what it takes to win. And in the end, you can be as fundamentally sound as you want. You still got to know how to win.
Obviously, the experience in their favor, winning the national championship a season ago. Final tune-up for North Carolina before Florida State comes in here on Sunday. Three-pointer by E.B. Jabber. Gets pinned within 11. 9 points for Jabber. Ivy League Player of the Year a year ago.
I guess to put a period on that comparison, I guess Hansbrough and Wright would get style points.
Hansbrough again, too strong that time, but Wright is there, unable to finish.
And no sooner did I say that they both missed chippies.
Shots that they certainly normally make. And then a Penn turnover, making it 14. There was one time where Penn was a national championship contender, a Final Four team back in 1979. They've got over 1,600 wins. Only 8 schools have done that. Penn is one of them.
Well, historically, they've dominated the Ivy League. And, as we continue to talk about them throughout this game, and you'll see why. Look at their coaching staff. You look at some of the players that they've been able to enroll at the University of Pennsylvania.
Penn was involved in Black Sunday back in 1979 as Hansbrough misses. Penn beat North Carolina in the first round of the 1979 NCAA tournament. That same day, Duke lost to St. John's in Raleigh. So both Carolina and Duke knocked out back in 79, and there have been a lot of big names coming through Penn as head coaches.
And this certainly plays a huge role in the success of Penn. Howie Dalmar from the Stanford National Championships back when. And then you look at Chuck Daly, Dick Harder, guys who went on to make big names in the professional level. And then Craig Littlepage, another guy, athletic director at University of Virginia, was a player and a coach at the University of Pennsylvania.
And he headed, as we have a travel to call on Brandon Wright, the NCAA selection committee, tournament selection committee a year ago. Craig Littlepage did.
That revolutionary selection committee that put all the mid-majors in and came up with it smelling like a rose.
Yes, he did.
The success of George Mason. Craig is, one of those innovative, creative thinkers, and his leadership, really helped capture the college basketball imagination, college basketball world's imagination.
It wasn't just George Mason, of course, at Wichita State, Bradley.
But come on, George Mason's the poster child for that type of success.
Beat North Carolina in the second round, George Mason did, en route to the miracle run to the Final Four. 12 seconds to go in the half. Penn down 9. 7 seconds remaining. Can they get it in the hands of Jabber? 3 seconds left. Iggy not even going to get a shot off. At the buzzer, shot would not have counted by Ginyard. North Carolina really turned it up defensively, forcing 15 Penn turnovers.
Again, you talk about really turning it up a notch, recognizing that the shot clock's running down. The best part about that defense, they played it without fouling. They were aggressive but didn't foul.
Penn head coach Glenn Miller is with DeVorsberg right now.
Coach, you had some success spreading the floor and using the back door for stretches in that first half, but turnovers midway through got to be a problem. What happened in that run?
It really got stagnant. We had success early running back doors, and then we stopped cutting. We have to cut hard and make short passes. We told the guys before the game, The first and second side of offense is the setup, and the third side and beyond is the score. And we got away from that, and then we got away from transition defense too. So we came back a little bit, got to a single-digit game, but it's 2 halves, and we have to have offensive movement.
Thanks, Glenn. Good luck in the second half, guys.
All right, Doris, and as Miller just said, it's a 9-point game. 39-30, but Wright and Hansbrough were dominant down the stretch. Now to Carl Ravitch in the studio for the UPS Halftime Report. Well, the stars definitely came out towards the end of the first half. Tyler Hansbrough with 10 and former vice presidential candidate and huge Tar Heel fan John Edwards here at the Dean Dome as well. 9-point lead for North Carolina at the half. Forced 15 turnovers, but only a 9-point lead, Len.
Well, the turnovers certainly is the difference in this ball game, particularly in getting Carolina out in transition. But when Penn was running their stuff and running it properly, they gave Carolina fits with the back door. The ability to spread the floor, bring your players up high, and then dribble towards the player and then drop it off that back door, using Carolina's aggression against them. But that's not enough.
Certainly Carolina has turned it up defensively. And in pregame, maybe a little intimidation to the Penn players watching. It paid off about midway through the first half.
You know, when you look at the 15 turnovers in the context of this ball game, Penn only got 23 field goal attempts compared to Carolina's 32. So the lost opportunities have put Penn at this deficit. They're shooting 56% from the field, which is none too shabby, but they just don't have enough opportunities because of the turnover.
Roy Williams was definitely concerned early in the season with his team's defense, but they've been excellent the last 6 games. Pretty good on offense, too. Wayne Ellington with the hot hand. He's got 12 points in the contest, and all of those have come in about the last 8 minutes.
Well, he has certainly had the hot hand. Coming into this game, he hit 22 of his last 39 three-point attempts. Today, he's 3 for 4.
And the last 5 opponents have shot no better than 37% against North Carolina.
And that's why the 56% of Penn shooting is kind of spectacular for them. But again, you combine that with the 15 turnovers, and they pretty much cancel each other out.
That little drill that North Carolina did in pregame with the Penn players huddle up and watching out of the corner of their eye. When's the last time you've seen them do that?
I haven't seen them do that in warm-ups in a while. And again, we talked about at the beginning of the telecast. This is the last tune-up before conference play. What does Roy Williams want to see from his team? And you saw the emphasis. That was on defense.
Well, and Rayshon Terry is second, first on North Carolina in the half. Florida State will come in here on Sunday. Seminoles lost at home to Clemson as the Tigers remain perfect. A 2-point win on the road and a 3-point basket by Jabber. And there he is again on defense. He loves that, and he always seems to come up with the steals. But an offensive foul on Zoller. Jabber averaging over 3 steals per game. He did that a couple of times in the first half.
And you can see, obviously, on the score, and we talked about Jabber just lurking around on the inbounds pass. He just has a knack for getting in the way when a guy is not paying attention. But Zoller right there, just a little bit too anxious to get to the basket. He received that pass, should have jump stopped and made a decision on the ground.
14 points, 5 assists, 3 steals, no turnovers for Jabber. And a foul on the other end on Danley, his third, and the second on Penn.
And again, you look at the shooting. You know, Carolina respectable, about 47% for that half, but Penn, 56%. The problem are the turnovers, and look at the points off turnovers. And as I said, good shooting gets canceled out by giving opportunities to the other team, particularly if that other team is North Carolina.
Danley goes to the bench with 3. Votel comes into the game. A lot of substitutions by both teams here tonight. 20 by North Carolina, and now 9 by Penn. And it was North Carolina's second unit that provided the spark when the Tar Heels were down 10. And now it's the first group really coming alive since they were on the bench for about a 4-minute span. Hansbrough now with 13.
I'd call that a high-low, except Brandon Wright was at the mid-post, so I call it a mid-high-low. But nevertheless, excellent 2-man game.
Roy Williams sending a message to those starters as they get a backdoor basket on the other end. Penn does to pull back within 10, but you saw Frazier on the floor earlier in the game. He hasn't been playing because of an injury, and he had 5 straight points to spark the Tar Heels before the starters went back. And that's about the time Wayne Ellington got hot, and he's still rolling. He's got 15, 4 of 5 from 3.
And this goes back to the point that Doris made in the first half. Tyler Hansbrough is going to get everybody's attention defensively, but in doing so, it creates opportunities for other guys, and that's why they're shooting such a high percentage.
Hansbrough with the steal, and then a foul on Zoller.
Again, you take a look at Brandon Wright. This is what I call a mid-high-low. Mid-post, he comes, he sees the defense. Zoller caught in no man's land, and just a nice lob. The size and the length of Brandon Wright allowed him to dump that ball down to Tyler Hansbrough. When you get those two guys playing together like that, there's no way you can take both of them away.
Another substitution. Iggy will come into the game. McMahon will go to the bench. Hansbrough 6 of 7 at the foul line, 14 points, only 2 rebounds in the game. Roy Williams always coaching and getting a laugh out of Rayshon Terry on the bench. Hansbrough, nice defense, got right in front of Hotel as Penn was attempting to make an entry pass and instead reset.
You know, you look at Penn, once again, they've kind of stagnated defensively. I mean, a lot of that is attributable to the Carolina pressure. Ooh, in and out.
Hotel unable to hit the 3, but a nice defensive play. And a beautiful pass to Jabber. Zoller with a nice defensive play and good look, and Jabber will go to the line.
But the point I was making with Penn is that they need to have a rule that every time the dribbler comes towards you, if you can't receive cleanly, go back door. Because what that does, even if you're not open back door, you draw your defender, you clear out that area, and it makes it easier for that ball handler passer to be able to execute whatever play you have. But if you stand there and continue to come towards the ball, you crowd the situation, give Carolina a chance to double team, and you also give them a chance to kind of slap the ball away from the dribbler.
Foul was on Danny Green, the second team foul on North Carolina. Jabber goes 1 out of 2 at the line. He's got 15 points. Here's Green on the offensive end. Hansbrough calling for it. Instead, Ellington. Shot on the baseline, too strong.
Got to come back to it.
And Zoller eventually finds Jabber. Jabber finds Grandieri, who missed the 3. Hansbrough with the board. Ahead to Ellington. Soaring down the baseline, score it, and a foul. Ellington has shown us everything in this game. 3-point shooting, and now driving the baseline. He's got 17, a game high.
And I tell you what made that play, Ellington's efficiency from outside. And look at the little hesitation right there, thinking that he's going to take a jump shot. Iggy just charged him, and Ellington just blew right by him. It's a nice way to give a little change of pace right there.
Now Ellington and McDonald's All-American, along with Ty Lawson and Brandon Wright, all 3 of those starting for Roy Williams' team. Wright going to the bench right now. And Ellington was featured in our Star Watch, and the 2 guys, Len, that you highlighted have lived up to the billing.
Well, you got one guy who's just a tremendous talent as a freshman in Wayne Ellington. And then E.B. Jabber, we talked about him, unanimous player of the year in the Ivy League last year, so you know he's got some game. It wasn't a hard choice.
Foul on Zoller is his 3rd. He's going to stay in the game. Deion Thompson comes back into the game for North Carolina and commits a foul, his first, 3rd on the Tar Heels in the half. 14 fouls on Penn. Who do you think's the best freshman in the ACC? Is it Brandon Wright? Is it Wayne Ellington? Is it a Thaddeus Young or Javaris Critton now at Georgia Tech? Or is it somebody else in the ACC other than those McDonald's All-Americans we just mentioned?
Well, it's hard to choose among them because each of them give their team something different. And they give it to them differently and spectacularly.
Gravis Vasquez at Maryland. I'll throw some more names out, Len, for you.
Well, you just talked about the cream of the crop. You know, when you start going to Vasquez and others, they have the potential to be great. Right now, they're kind of on the cusp. But when you're talking about Wright, when you're talking about Crittenden, guys like that, I mean, their impact is certainly felt. How about Ishmael Smith, freshman at Wake Forest, who leads the conference in assists with over 6 a game.
There's a guy that leads the conference in assist-to-turnover ratio. Another terrific freshman, Ty Lawson. And the lead is 14. Roy Williams said Ty Lawson might be the most talented freshman guard he's ever had. That's saying a lot. You consider the frost that have played for Roy Williams. Jabber with the basket to get Penn back within 12. That's 19 now for E.B. Jabber.
Jabber's so cool, for the most part, calm under pressure. And he's always quick, but never in a hurry.
And a foul inside on Penn. Stevenson will go to the line for 2. That's on Botel, his third. And we mentioned that John Edwards is in the house, and he's chatting with Doris Burke right now. We'll talk on a camera when we come back.
Carolina up 12, much to the enjoyment of Jack Edwards and Emma Claire Edwards, and of course presidential candidate John Edwards. And how on earth does a presidential candidate have time to attend a college basketball game?
Listen, our family are big Tar Heel fans, and we come here whenever we can to the game.
Most Americans, I think, use sports as a diversion. Clearly, you have plenty on your mind. How do you view sports in America?
If only I could do politics the way Roy runs the Tar Heels and the way Ty Lawson runs the break, I'd be in a good place.
What do you admire most? You have been on campus, you ran a poverty center here, and obviously that has now gone by the wayside. But what do you admire most about what you see from Roy Williams?
Well, what I'm so impressed by about what the Tar Heels do every season is they play well at a high level, but they do it with integrity. They graduate the kids. Roy Williams is the class of the NCAA coaching ranks, so I'm very proud of this team.
You've declared your candidacy. This team has clearly got a tremendous upside. Your thoughts on where they finish in March and late season?
I'm knocking on wood. I think we got a shot. I was there when the Tar Heels won the national championship with Felton, May, McCants, and I hope to be there when they win the championship this spring.
Well, you were terrific with us in the ACC tournament in Washington, D.C. If it doesn't work out, we'll hire you as a color commentator on college basketball, guys.
My dream job.
Did you hear that, Len?
Oh, he actually told me that once before. He and I shared a plane ride to Washington, D.C., and we started talking. I thought he was a State fan. Comes to find out he was a Carolina fan.
Missed by Thompson after Ginyard missed the layup, and another Penn foul. John talked about knocking on wood for North Carolina, maybe thinking the same thing for his presidential candidacy for 2008.
Yeah, but if you're knocking on wood, you should be knocking on his head and running for president at the same time.
You know what's funny, though, when we were talking with Roy Williams and he said knock on wood a couple times, he knocked on his head as well. So you can tell that John Edwards and Roy Williams have been spending some time together.
That's a Tar Heel thing.
Is that how it is? He didn't do that at Maryland.
That's a Tar Heel thing. Nobody else would understand.
If you're a Tar Heel at some point in your lifetime, you're essentially a Tar Heel for life. This is a family atmosphere. Roy Williams, obviously a former assistant coach here from 1978 to 1988 under Dean Smith.
Yeah, but that's where it all began. The genesis of the family and the tradition began with Dean Smith.
Steal by Hansbrough, 3-on-2. Thompson scores, and he's fouled. That pleases John Edwards. It probably pleases Eric Montross as well, who is a color analyst on the North Carolina radio broadcast. There's Eric, former Tar Heel great.
And again, you talk about the considerable talents of Tyler Hansbrough. That's something that's very much underrated, his ability to put the ball on the floor. And you'll see him more than once be able to lead the fast break off the rebound, off the loose ball.
Foul was on Michael Ketch, his first 17th foul on Penn. Free throw is good from Thompson. It's an 18-point Carolina lead. It's largest of the contest. Thompson now at 6. We were talking in the first half about Hubert Davis is in the studio tonight. He now lives in Chapel Hill, as does Eric Montross. And speaking about that family atmosphere, players that spent time in the NBA come back to Chapel Hill to take up residency. And Eric, alongside Woody Durham, is the color analyst on the Tar Heel radio broadcast.
So that's what's driving the real estate prices up. All these pros coming back to Chapel Hill.
26 points for North Carolina off of Penn turnovers and almost another Quaker giveaway. Here's Zoller from the corner. Gets by Green. Oh, nice pass underneath to Danley. And a North Carolina foul.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for Penn, the success is moving the ball, forcing Carolina when they double and triple to have them scramble, and then to be able to find the open man. If they could just maintain their poise to do that.
And here is the extended North Carolina family. The shirts, the jerseys with the blue are the retired jerseys. The rest are just honored jersey, including McCants, May, and Felton, who just had those jerseys raised to the rafters at halftime of the Dayton game on December 31st. You know, there's certain qualifications to have your jersey raised, but not retired, but raised and honored. And Tyler Hansbrough, being a first-team All-American, has already qualified to have his jersey raised to the rafters at North Carolina. Here's the alley-oop to Hansbrough, able to get control and score.
Right, the advantage is just insurmountable as far as size is concerned for Carolina. You know, when all else fails, you just throw over the defense.
And a timeout called by Penn as North Carolina now leads by 19. The Tar Heels just dominating inside. Hansbrough with 17 points in the game. And here, Carl, that is not a typo, but certainly a surprise. Penn and North Carolina tied in terms of points in the paint. It seems like North Carolina's dominating the paint, no less.
Well, I mean, as far as getting the ball and playing inside out, now you factor in Wayne Ellington 4 of 6 from beyond the arc.
Another backdoor cut. That's how Penn's gotten a lot of his points in a lane. That's on Michael Ketch with the basket, his first points. Razor back into the game. North Carolina was down 10 early. Then Roy Williams went to the bench, brought in 5 new players as Andy Green is called for an offensive foul, his third personal. And Frazier came into the game and hit 5 straight points, and North Carolina was rolling from there. Tomorrow night, college basketball on both ESPN and ESPN2 at 7 Eastern. Pittsburgh and Syracuse on ESPN. On ESPN2, Michigan State and Iowa. How about Drew Neitzel and the Spartans? What are their chances of winning the Big Ten this year?
Well, I tell you, the chances are decent. Obviously, Ohio State is the big monster in that conference. But we had a chance to see Michigan State early. And Drew Neitzel, along with a couple of young players, showed themselves, acquitted themselves very well in playing against Texas, and obviously a last-second shot, and then trying to battle Maryland, ultimately succumbing to them. But Neitzel certainly showed that he's the leader of that team. And, they're going to have to ride his back this part of the field.
Zoller with the putback, and obviously Wisconsin is a candidate to win the Big Ten, fourth in the country right now. Nice touch by Penn, so it stays Carolina basketball. Brandon Wright comes back into the game. And Deion Thompson goes to the bench. They just rotate terrific freshmen in and out of the game. Free pass to Terry. Had right backside, but then it's cut off. And it's poked out to Ginyard. Almost another steal by Jabber. He's got quick hands. It's a jump ball. It's going to go to Penn on the alternate possession. North Carolina 12-1 on the year. The only loss for the Tar Heels was against Gonzaga. Been a murderous schedule for the Zags this year. They've played Duke. They're playing Virginia tonight. They also played at Georgia, lost that game. Played Nevada and Seattle.
Well, the game they lost to Georgia, it appeared that they've been on the road for like a week to 10 days.
Gonzaga playing Virginia over on ESPN2 right now at Virginia. That's 3 ACC teams that the Zags have played before getting into conference play. Hansbrough, what a spin and slam! 19 points for Hansbrough. Back to a 17-point North Carolina lead. Tar Heels open up ACC play against Florida State on Sunday. And then they'll play Virginia next Wednesday, and then at Virginia Tech on the 13th to open up our coverage on ABC. Hansbrough with 19 points. Carolina by 17 at home. Penn shot 57% in the first half, 64% in the second half, but down 17 as Tyler Hansbrough has 19. Wayne Ellington with 17 for the Tar Heels. Doubleheader Saturday on ESPN. First at noon, Virginia Tech taking on number 5 Duke. And then at 2 o'clock Eastern, Greg Oden and 6th-ranked Ohio State against Illinois. You and I saw Duke last night take care of Temple. The Blue Devils with one loss going into ACC play. How do you like their chances in the ACC this year?
Of course. I mean, they're beyond Carolina. I think Duke, with their record, their young people learning how to win. And you get McRoberts and you get Paulus starting to play up to their billing. And I think they're very formidable.
Miller missing a long 3, rebounded by Zoller.
And you add to that the tremendous defense that they played all season, and that's really the thing that's kept them in games. It certainly has won games for them.
Carolina's ranked number 2 in the country. Duke ranked number 5. Is there that big of a gap, in your opinion? Or is there a bigger gap than the rankings, I guess I should say, should indicate between Carolina and Duke right now?
I mean, the gaps are highly misleading. I mean, there's not a big gap between number 1 through 15 in my mind in the rankings in college basketball. But certainly in the ACC between Carolina and Duke, I don't care what their records are. They're still going to be highly competitive with each other.
Carolina and Duke, both very young teams. Rayshon Terry's the only scholarship senior on North Carolina. 6 points for the seniors out of their 64 tonight. Yeah, Wes Miller on the floor right now. He was a scholarship senior at one time, but he has elected to give up his scholarship and is a walk-on again. He did that so Roy Williams could go out and sign another freshman last year. Here's Miller. Now freshman Thompson, another freshman Ellington. Ellington off the dribble. Has a sweet stroke, but was short that time. Stanley on the baseline, and no foul called. Bodies hit the floor. Terry with a great save to Ellington.
Well, Roy Williams said that Rayshon Terry is one of the most tremendous athletes that he's ever coached. And again, with his size, his length, he thinks he has the potential to be the best defender that he's ever coached. And, you know, that's going away and saying something. But again, the thing he has to remember is that he doesn't have to do it all by himself. He's a senior. Yes, people will notice your game. You don't have to go out there and be an All-American in just one play. But you can let the game come to you, do the things that you do best, and people will recognize.
Points are down this year for Rayshon Terry by about 5 points per game, but some of that has to be that you've got Brandon Wright, Ty Lawson, and Wayne Ellington. Now you've got more scorers.
Well, from last year, just about everybody who played significant minutes, their numbers are down, except for Tyler Hansbrough, and obviously that is attributable to losing minutes to these quality freshmen.
North Carolina lost in the second round to George Mason. Last year, Roy Williams was Coach of the Year in the ACC. As not a whole lot was expected of North Carolina. Penn was in the NCAA tournament last year. In fact, it's won the Ivy League. And when you win the regular season in the Ivy League, you get the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. They've won it the last 2 years and 4 of the last 5. They're a regular in the NCAA tournament. We talked in the pregame about North Carolina hustling in the game defensively.
Well, again, the message certainly was received. And also, Roy did a little bit of coaching in the first half. He put his second 5 in because he didn't believe his first 5 was exhibiting the energy or effort on the defensive end necessary to get to this type of lead. And that second 5 went out and they hustled. Bobby Fraser, as you mentioned, big 5 points. And really set the tone, and the starters came back in and just took it from there.
We talked earlier about the family atmosphere here at North Carolina. The seniors, Wes Miller and Rayshon Terry, very involved in terms of getting the freshmen to feel like they're part of the family. They all get together as a team once a week and have lunch and talk about what's going on in their lives. And what you saw in the pregame with the players diving on the floor, they're showing that both on and off the floor, they're going to be one unit, and chemistry is going to play a big role in how far North Carolina goes this year. As Terry hits the three, he's got 9 points in the game. Doris Burke has more on the North Carolina chemistry.
Well, you guys were talking about the family atmosphere. Sean May was recently honored, as you know, and you talked about that earlier. He talked about the similarities between his team, the national championship team in 2005, and this particular group. He actually said about them, they're similar. Very quick point guard in Taiwan Lawson, similar to Ray Felton. An outstanding inside can. You got Brandon Wright, who's amazing. Wayne Ellington, he thought, plays a similar role to that of Rashad McCants. He said the only difference, really, and Lenny, you talked about this, is compared to our team and our last year there when we won it, they're really young. But I think in terms of where they are as freshmen, this group is further along. So an interesting statement from that family. There you see the 2005 starting five and the starting five for tonight, guys. Pretty solid lineups.
Oh, it certainly is. And if I'm making a comparison, I think the 2005 team had the experience factor in their favor, particularly at the point guard, the most key position in college basketball. But I think this team is better offensively, particularly in the half court. And I think defensively they might be a little quicker, a little more athletic, this team.
Turnover by Terry. Jabber on the other end. And no foul call as he was challenged by Rayshawn Terry. Iggy can't get the bounce. And then a foul on Jabber. 18th foul on Penn, so 1-1 for North Carolina.
And I kind of don't blame Jabber. Getting frustrated.
Second personal on Jabber. Penn down 15 at North Carolina. North Carolina leading by 15 over Penn. We mentioned earlier that Penn has a rich tradition going back to the 70s. They lost to North Carolina in the 1972 regional final. And in 1979, Penn went to the Final Four playing Magic Johnson, Greg Kelser, and the Spartans in the national semifinals. And Penn got blown out by Michigan State. Tony Price, Bobby Willis on that team. He beat Iona, North Carolina, Syracuse, and St. John's on the way to the Final Four. Ended up losing in the third place game as well, 2-DePaul. Mark Aguirre for the Blue Demons scored 34 in that game.
Well, talking about having a terrific game, Evie Jabber, 19 points, 7 assists, 3 steals. And on that last foul, that was just a frustration foul. He had gone up, gotten hammered, no call. So he tried to make a play on his own. But again, I talked about him keeping his cool, keeping his calm. That's pretty good leadership.
You definitely can see why he was the Ivy League Player of the Year last year. Jabber with 19 points, 7 assists, 1 turnover, and 3 steals in this game. A terrific senior from Elizabethtown, New Jersey. Terry hit the first free throw. He's got 10 points. And the lead is back to 17 for North Carolina, which at one point early in the game, albeit the Tar Heels were down 10 to Penn. And we're talking about the comparisons of that 2005 team to this squad. And defensively, they did not get maybe as much credit as they should have. Of the 37 games for Roy Williams that year, in 20 of those games, they held their opponents under 40% shooting. Everybody remembers North Carolina and that team for the offense and the scorers and obviously now the NBA players.
But I still believe, again, look at the length of Brandon Wright. Rayshawn Terry is a year older, a year better. The quickness out here that this team, particularly in the half court, is probably a better offensive team, and defensively they have the potential to be better.
Hansbrough. Short, but Terry is there. He's having a strong second half. He's got 13 points now in the game.
Well, he's allowed the game to come to him. And, you know, Roy Williams and I talked about this before because I asked him, you know, is there a situation with Terry? And he mentioned the fact that he puts too much pressure on himself. You know, obviously looking on to the next level instead of focusing on where he is. Well, he knows where he is tonight. He's giving the maximum effort.
This 3 by Iggy, another rebound for Terry. That's 9, so he's 1 rebound shy of a double-double. Nice pass, Brandon Wright from Ty Lawson, and the Penn foul. They did that about 3 or 4 times during the McDonald's All-American game. They became good friends. And that's a duo that could leave a mark on the ACC this year.
And again, you're talking about being fundamentally sound. Look at the lock right there. The foul was called as Grandieri had his arm around, right, trying to side him or get on the high side and deflect that pass. But in the end, you look at all of the Carolina big men. They're so good at getting you down on a low block, getting you in a position, freezing you, and then sealing you off and giving a great target for the pass.
You know, it's interesting. We're talking about the McDonald's All-American game. You had those three freshmen there, Lawson and Ellington and Brandon Wright, but most people were talking about Lawson's quickness and Ellington's shooting. Brandon Wright was kind of under the radar, even though he's a three-time Mr. Basketball in Tennessee. He's from Nashville, not necessarily a basketball hotbed, but you look at Wright's numbers this year. He's second in North Carolina in scoring, second in rebounding as he gets aboard here.
Well, he has the type of game that doesn't show well in All-Star games. Usually in All-Star games, it's all about going and getting it for yourself. You know, fast breaks, spectacular dunks, and things like that. Brandon Wright is just fundamentally sound, uses his length to its greatest advantage. You know, he understands how to play, always in good position. And, you know, for the untrained eye, you look at the spectacular. For people who know, and obviously Roy Williams is one of them, and all those others who recruited him, they knew exactly what they were getting.
Coming into this game, Brandon Wright shooting 67% from the floor. Pennsylvania, the antithesis of that lately, 2 for its last 14 from the field. Catch from 3, no good, and Wright with a rebound, quick handoff to Lawson.
Well, you know, the multiple substitutions by Carolina has also taken its toll as well. At this part of the season, you know, guys are looking forward towards conference play, and, you know, you're at Penn and you're playing North Carolina, and you start recognizing that, you know, you're down this far in Carolina, you may not be coming back.
When you think of North Carolina basketball, that's the first name that comes to mind right there, number 23. Won the 1982 national championship as a freshman when Carolina went 32-2. And there was Michael Jordan that played for Penn as well, but no relation. There was also David Robinson. That is actually Walt Frazier's son, but Robinson and Jordan are not related. We need to find if there are any Glenn Elmores that played at other schools out there.
Oh, there can only be one.
Jabber with 20 points, fortunately. The folks in the truck just echoed that sentiment.
Nothing like a vote of confidence.
21 points, 7 assists now for Ibrahim Jabber. I guarantee you there's not another E.B. Jabber out there. He passed to Wright. Danny Green, an open 3. Hansbrough with the board. A couple of power moves inside and gets hacked. 2 free throws coming up for Hansbrough. Tomorrow night, college basketball on ESPN at 7 Eastern Time. Syracuse against number 10 Pittsburgh, followed by number 24 Michigan State, and Iowa at 9 Eastern over on ESPN2. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. How do you think the Big East is shaping up with teams like Notre Dame playing awfully well, and West Virginia, which you saw beat Connecticut on Saturday?
Well, those are 2 of the surprises, obviously, in the league. You know, the teams that were expected to compete, obviously, it's Pittsburgh, Georgetown, and even Connecticut, despite their youth. And they ultimately will be the types of teams that everyone expected. Pittsburgh playing well, but in the end, it's those surprises. It's those wild cards like Notre Dame and West Virginia that make that conference as exciting as it always is.
There's a foul on Terry. That's his 3rd personal 19 foul, so a 1-and-1 situation for Steve Denley. Denley played at DeMatha in Germantown, Maryland. Played for Morgan Rudin before his retirement. Missed the free throw, though. Morgan won't be happy with that. And then on the drive, Terry, and a blocking foul.
Right now, you can tell Carolina, despite the score, they're looking to tune and fine-tune. And this is what they do. Out of the basket, they push it right back at you. And if you're not paying attention for even the briefest moment, you know, they're bearing down for a layup after a make.
.16 points now for Rayshon Terry. And with the way Terry's playing right now, and North Carolina blowing everybody out, do you see a weakness with the Tar Heels going into ACC play? This is their final tune-up before they play Florida State here Sunday.
Well, it's hard to say. The only thing I can tell you, though, is if they begin the game like they began it today, allowing the back doors and starting to get at a deficit, they won't be playing Penn in the ACC. And that might be the weakness. They've got to get it started right from the jump.
Terry with the steal, Brandon Wright with the jam, and Carolina has opened up a 25-point lead. Well, Doris and Lynn both talked earlier about that 2005 National Championship team. Let's match up again. The 5 from that squad and the 5 starters from the 2006-2007 unit.
And once again, it's not about man-on-man. It's not about individual matched up against individual. But in the long run, I think that the 2005 team, because of the experience on that level, we're talking about 3 freshmen in the lineup of the current team. I think in the long run, it would be the experience that wins out. But if you're talking about march on march or have this group go one more year, then again, I think in the half court offensively, this group is better. I think this group is more athletic. And I also think that they have the potential of being a better defensive team as they understand and learn the system and the game.
With more on this, let's bring Doris back in.
Well, certainly this group has got more depth. And you think about their defensive stopper. Jackie Manuel played the 2 spot and gave them very little scoring. Marcus Ginyard comes off the bench in that defensive stopper role. So you have to look at the depth. Lenny, you make a great point. I don't think you can go head-to-head and try to make a comparison because it's entirely different situation.
Blocked by Jabber as Ellington tried to drive, and certainly it's hard to compare. I mean, you're talking about a championship team from a couple of years ago, and Ginyard is a sophomore. Roy Williams says best freshman defender he's ever coached. And you look at the points breakdown tonight. I mean, again, most of the points coming from freshmen and sophomores, where that team 2 years ago were made of veterans who went through a rough stretch early in their career at North Carolina.
And this team is developing even greater cohesiveness, and you wonder, you look at these guys, how they move the ball and the unselfishness, and you wonder if they can get any better.
How about Terry with the jam and a foul? Talk about a man with confidence, Rayshawn Terry.
Well, again, transition, and I mentioned it before, there's not a better team in America in transition because of the athletes and the unselfishness. And Rayshawn Terry, did he throw that down lefty?
Yes, he did.
That got him out of their seats.
18 points, 9 rebounds for Rayshawn Terry. And may have hurt himself after dunking with the left hand.
Well, strategically, this is great for Roy Williams because we've talked about it before. Rayshawn Terry, putting a lot of pressure on himself. This is one of those games where he's letting it all hang out, getting loose. And this is what a so-called tune-up is all about. Not to take anything away from Penn because they were competitive for a long period of time in this game. But this is a season high for Rayshawn Terry, 19 points.
Roy Williams at one point had Mr. Terry in the doghouse. At one point when Rayshawn made him so upset, Roy Williams so mad he threw a chair, not at Rayshawn, but threw a chair, and Terry back in the good graces of his coach. And obviously Roy Williams understands that, or Rayshawn Terry understands that he's the only senior. He is the only scholarship senior, and his coach is relying on him to do big things and help these young guys assimilate to ACC basketball.
Yeah, I think the way you take the pressure off is for Rayshawn Terry to understand this is not about him. This is about team. And within the team concept, he'll get his. And certainly tonight, he got his hands full.
12 points, 5 rebounds now for Brandon Wright. 86-58 North Carolina. The Tar Heels going to go to 13-1. This will be their 10th straight win. And not an easy start to the ACC schedule as Danny Green scores. And a Penn timeout. Florida State here on Sunday. Virginia here next Wednesday. Then at Virginia Tech on ABC on January 13th. And undefeated Clemson in North Carolina's next appearance on ESPN on January 17th. The Tar Heels won the title in 2005. But they make it 2 out of 3 years. We mentioned some of the games that the Tar Heels have on the schedule coming up. Starting Sunday with Florida State. Next appearance on ESPN against Clemson, and then kicking off our ABC coverage with a game at Virginia Tech, and that will be a tough test for the Tar Heels on the road.
Well, I'll tell you, I think all four of those teams are tough tests. There is no holiday in the ACC, and I don't care whether you're playing at home or on the road. You know, the capability, we talked about the distance between Carolina, which still is the standard bearer in this conference, but the distance between them and the rest of the conference is not that much when it comes to those top 4, 5, 6 teams.
Let's take a look at your New Year needs for the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Well, again, I've been saying that Sean Miller and Xavier, I picked them to be a sleeper in the NCAA tournament, but, you know, they've had some losses to Cincinnati, to Creighton, to Bucknell. It slowed their progress. They need to dominate their conference to restart the buzz. And the ACC, we just talked about it. You know, Clemson certainly kept it going tonight. Virginia, they need, even though they're one of the top rebounding teams, they continue to need some scoring inside to complement their guards. No question about it. And Florida State, losing to Clemson at home, that's no disgrace. But that's a team that there's been some sneaky expectations for them, especially after beating Florida.
Block shot by Stevenson. North Carolina by 30. Here's Thomas. That's Gordon Ginyard. 4 assists now for Thomas. And is out of timeouts. 32-point North Carolina lead.
Talking about New Year needs, also Duke, we saw them yesterday, and what they needed was McRoberts and Paulus to play as expected. Well, we're starting to see that right now.
You look at the last 4 games for Josh McRoberts, averaging a double-double. 2 games ago, he had a career high in rebounds. Then yesterday against Temple, had a career high in points, playing maybe the best basketball of his college career.
Absolutely, as versatile as they come. And
a foul here on Zoller. That's his 4th. It's a 32-point North Carolina lead. They're blowing out their last 7 opponents by at least 33 points. Are they as good as the 2005 team, which won a national championship? We'll talk more about that when we come back. Carl, Virginia with great guards. Gonzaga's got to be dead tired from going back and forth across the country. You know, Len, before the break, we were talking a lot about North Carolina in comparison to that 2005 national championship run. Remember Illinois that year? A lot of people thought, had the best team. North Carolina the best talent, but Illinois the best team. Many again feel North Carolina has the most talent. Is there another group out there that you look at in the country and say, maybe they have a better team? Would it be Florida?
Well, you'd have to say Florida, obviously, and the main factor is that they've experienced winning and they have every key guy back. So that is obviously the one team that you point to. But, there will be others that emerge. It just is like Carolina will grow. The youth will grow. There are other teams that are young teams that ultimately will emerge.
North Carolina could be number 1 next week because UCLA, currently ranked number 1, the ESPN poll, plays on the road at Oregon on Saturday. And Gonzaga out of the top 25, was in the top 25 at one point. Nevada with Nick Fazekas. Air Force having a good year, as is Butler once again.
Well, again, and you look at those teams, the so-called mid-majors who have crept into the top 25. And talking to Roy Williams earlier, we talked about the idea is to be one of the teams that has a chance to win it all in March. And there are only about 15 or 20 teams who actually have that chance. And, I asked him again, when would it come down to one of those mid-majors winning? And he said it's soon, but right now it's still 6 games. And you're talking about depth. You're talking about high level of talent. And maybe they're not exactly there, but they're coming on strong.
Stevenson with a block. Shot clock now at 5 for Penn. Stanley on the drive, and a foul is called with 2 seconds on the shot clock. Well, obviously teams that you would not consider major names had gotten close to the Final Four in the past, but George Mason getting there. Do you think we'll see that again this year? Do you think we'll see a team from a non-BCS conference, because it's hard to call them mid-majors anymore with the way college basketball is right now, from a non-BCS school? Do you see one getting that far this year?
I don't know about this year, but I think in the next 5 years, you're definitely going to see it again and possibly somebody ultimately winning it because, again, it comes down to having the depth and having the experience, and you do that through recruiting, exposure, and in those schools, they're able to keep people a full 4 years.
Handler gets the second free throw.
You know, the talent level is broad, and it is deep, and it goes across from one coast to the other. So there are a lot of schools right now getting guys who may not be ranked on the scouting report, but still have some talent and have the capability and desire to want to be able to win.
Stevenson with a putback. Well, just look at a guy like E.B. Jabber here for Penn and the night he's had against North Carolina. 21 points, 8 assists, only 2 turnovers, and 3 steals.
And in the face of all of this pressure, E.B. Jabber can play for anybody. And you get about 3 or 4 guys like that on a non-BCS conference team, and you get them as seniors, and who knows what can happen.
We were talking earlier about Gonzaga. There's no question they lost a lot with Morrison and J.P. Batista, but there's still a lot of talent there. And I think once they get their legs and then probably winning their conference as Riley hits the shot, Gonzaga's still a dangerous team come tournament time.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, I think Mark Few would probably sit back and say he overscheduled this year.
Dewey Burke from 3. Burke, a senior from Philadelphia, doing it against Penn. Everybody getting into the act for the Tar Heels. And then on the other end, it's Kevin Iggy with the made shot.
The crowd calling for the other guys who play seldomly to get a shot up. But just to go back to Gonzaga real quick before the buzzer goes off, you want to schedule tough enough where you build callus on your team so that when you get to March, you're able to withstand. I think Mark Few will look at it and see that he's developed a blister for his team with all those losses. And he may have just overscheduled and probably won't happen again. But you're right, they'll be hurt from.
Foul on Darren Smith on his way to the basket. North Carolina 1 point away from its 5th 100-point game. And we were talking about E.B. Jabber had a great game tonight, and Penn certainly among the favorites to win the Ivy League. The Quakers have been to the NCAA tournament each of the last 2 years. They lost to Texas in the first round a year ago, but played the Longhorns tight as a 15 seed, lost by 8 points.
Well, Penn hadn't played since December 23rd at Seton Hall. They lost that game 94-85, but Jabber had 32 points in that loss. So this is not unusual.
He had 28 in the second half in that game against Seton Hall. Crowd again on its feet. 3 won't go. Copeland had it. Burke for 3. Carolina's over 100. 5th time already North Carolina has eclipsed triple digits. 102-64. North Carolina, number 2 in the country, improves to 13-1, winning its 10th straight game. Currently on ESPN2, Virginia and Gonzaga. And don't forget our post-game extra on ESPN News. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Len O'More and our entire ESPN crew, Doris Burke as well, I'm Dave Pash. 102-64, North Carolina blows out Penn. So long from Chapel Hill.